A few years ago, I bought myself a 1973 Volkswagen Beetle. It's a classic. I'm a lover of classic cars. So I took it to a mechanic, and one of these days at the mechanics, a guy pops up with a very beautiful, huge Mercedes GLE. In my country, together with the taxes, it should have cost him at least 150,000 US dollars to own such a car. So I thought to myself, this should be some damn-ass rich guy, properly rich, in order to be able to own such a car. Now, later I found out that he also had a Beetle that he had bought and brought over there for it to get fixed and get a few things changed. So I took that opportunity in disguise that I was really interested to share the Beetle story with him, to take his number, and later found out that I was actually correct. This guy was doing quite well. He not only spent over 150,000 on a GLE, but he had a huge range of classic cars, and he was living the good life. There was something that I got wrong. He wasn't smart like I thought. I later found out that he had got most of his money simply from trading, trading goods of all things. He had mastered the art over a few years, and it was making him a lot of money. Now here I was, a doctor by profession, had the best grades, had always performed amongst the best in my country at almost all levels, and this guy was probably a year or two older than me, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, this guy is too sharp, he has too much money. But I was wrong. I was completely wrong. It's quite easy to think that rich people are rich because they are smarter than you, but that's completely untrue. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you why dumber people actually have way more money than you, and how you can learn from them not only to become richer than them, but also to utilize the fact that you might even be smarter than them to even become richer. So stick around right through to the end. Now first, you need to understand where all this comes from. Generally, life has taught us that it is survival for the fittest. Not that. Survival for the fittest. It is something that comes from evolution. The one who is fitter survives. You get to live. So generally the idea is that the less mistakes you make in life, the higher your chances of survival. For example, in the medieval times, houses were built in communities. The reasons houses were built in communities is because it offered a sense of protection, a sense of belonging. If you put your house outside the community, you're more open to attacks from other violent communities, from wild animals. So people came together because it was a survival tactic for you to be able to survive. If you decided to put your home separate from the rest of the people, you decrease your chances of survival. Currently, things have changed. They are the other way around. People who have a lot of money, people who are thriving, prefer to place their houses in more isolated places because they love to be peaceful, they love to be quiet in quiet places. Why? Because survival is no longer the deal. If you're in an isolated places, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a violent tribe come and attack you, or you're not going to have lions come and attack you because your home is, 2 kilometers from the rest of the community. So generally for us, survival doesn't work. Also, look at people who live in ghetto communities, for example. You would imagine that they are safer because they are living together. Generally, they are more successful. Unfortunately, it's the other way around. People who live in ghetto communities have a better survival instincts. They are moving, every time they're walking, they're looking around, trying to make sure that nothing is coming towards you. They're literally alert. Someone who is not used to living in a ghetto community is not aware on the survival instinct. For him, it's not about survival, yeah? He's living his life naturally, and that person, once attacked, is more likely to lose his life than someone who lives in a ghetto community, because for them, they are always alert. It's all about survival. But generally speaking, people who live in ghetto communities are less successful than the other people. So despite the fact that it's clearly evident that survival instincts are generally not important to our existence right now, they don't contribute so much to our ability to be successful and make it big in life, the way life had trained us from very many years ago, and especially the brilliant people, is that they still put a lot of emphasis on survival and not thriving. And therein is the problem. So there are three main problems that come with being too brilliant, with being the kind of person who reasons so much and thinks about so much to each and every detail. Number one, such people pay too much attention to risk. Like I've already shared with you, risk had always been an important aspect of evolution and for the change of life, not only in humans, but in other animals. But the problem is that once you pay too much attention to risk, then you literally pay a blind eye to opportunities. While you're trying to look at everything that might go wrong and not looking at the opportunities that might be presented to you, you literally miss out on the opportunities once they pass by, because you're trying to make sure that you don't fail. Every time you assess risk, you're trying to make sure that you don't get left behind. you're not amongst the ones that fail, despite the fact that the chances of failure generally in life are very low. Look at all the times you've thought about the bad things, the evil things that could happen in your life. The likelihood that they actually happen are very, very, very low. The thing about human beings is that there are two sides to every coin. There's good things that can happen to us and bad things that happen to us. The thing about the human brain is that it tends to pay more attention on something when it happens in the negative direction compared to something when it happens in the positive direction. For example, if you're seated down and someone comes and gives you $1,000, you'll be happy, you'll be excited, but you won't feel like something so huge just happened to you. But if you lost $1,000, if you had $1,000 today and someone came and stole it from you, someone was passing by and pulled it from you and ran away from you, you feel a greater sense of loss when you lose $1,000 compared to when you gain $1,000. Generally, what has happened is that it's the same thing that has happened to you in two different directions. So generally, humans have evolved to be more aversive and to fear loss more than they fear gain. So because of that, the brilliant people pay too much attention to risk and avoiding failure than actually possible equal positive impact. That means possible equal gains in the right direction. The second problem is that brilliant people continuously seek approval from others. You see, the thing about being brilliant is that a lot of times you end up in some form of community. For example, I am a doctor, so a lot of my colleagues and friends are doctors, and it becomes quite easy for me to compare myself to other doctors. If one of them pops up with a GLE, I want to have a Mercedes GLE. If one of them builds this kind of house, I want to have that kind of house. If one of them is married, I want to get married. It's about comparison to people in your social group. You're always seeking to please others, unlike people who are not really brilliant. For them, that does not matter. And the problem with continuously seeking approval from others is that then you move away from your path. You move away from the things that would have brought you satisfaction and joy, and from the things that would have brought success to your life, and then you move on to the path of another person. You miss the opportunities. Instead of, for example, putting money aside for investment, instead of putting money aside for savings or something that's very important, you're trying to appease other people and to make sure that you look like other people, or you look like what people expect of you or what people want of you, and that closes a lot of doors and opportunities for growth. The third problem with brilliant people is that they look at life in a specialist line instead of looking at it in a more generalistic line. You see, that's very important. The thing about brilliant people is that you grow up in class performing, amongst the best people. You're looking towards a particular career path, and in the end, a lot of people just end up being specialists. They end up being the best doctors, the best lawyers, the best accountants. They just become specific on one thing. Unfortunately, life and success in life are not about being specific. In life, it's all about being as general as possible. The thing about brilliant people is that they look from one point and then look outwards. Yeah, it's literally looking from inside outward. It's an individual and another individual and another individual, and 10 individuals make up a group. The flip side of looking at life is looking at everything in general, and then you then consider the smaller components that compose of life. If you look at life as a more specialized thing, it means that you miss out on the bigger picture. You miss out on all the possibilities that could happen in your life in all other things that you don't pursue. But when you look at life as a more general picture, then you're not only looking in one line, you're looking at different possibilities. You're looking at how people think, you're looking at how people act, you're looking at how economies come together, you're looking at how the weather affects everything, how cultures affect everything, and that simply opens you up to more opportunities and increases your likelihood of success. So then, the advantages that dumber people have over you is that first, they don't give a damn whether they fail or not. They are used to taking risks. They have literally been called failures their entire life. From day one, they don't get the very best grades. So for them, everything is a risk, isn't it? They don't care whether they fail at it or not. They'll always get another opportunity. Just like they always failed at school, just like they were called failures in their communities, but they are still alive, they still manage to get food. They know that tomorrow is another opportunity to get something. And in case they fail or something doesn't work out, it's simply an opportunity for them to learn and utilize that to go ahead in their life. They understand that failures generally happen in life. And since they have that ability, for them, they are more willing and ready to risk. And the thing that we already talked about is that the things we are actually scared about are unlikely to happen. So because the things are unlikely to happen, well, in the end, things end up working well for them and the people end up succeeding, where a lot of brilliant people would actually have caved in and pulled out because they feel it's too risky. But the second thing is that they don't care what other people say. They don't care what other people think about them. They don't mind driving the most weird Toyota so that they save a bit more money and they're able to invest a bit more money. Whilst someone who is really brilliant and has a high socioeconomic class will care so much about the kind of car, for example, they drive, so they end up spending too much money, 10 times more money than they needed to ever spend on a vehicle, which money they could have utilized maybe to invest in a business, maybe to do real estate, to do things that could have brought their lives forward. So then, how can you utilize your brilliance to ensure that you're not only at the level of the dumber people, but also you perform better than them? First of all, you're brilliant, isn't it? You're already brilliant, so you should be able to internalize the things that I've been talking about and understand that they actually make sense. And for you to understand that the things that you actually fear, the bad things that you think might happen to you, have very low chances of happening. And also, even if they happened, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? Some people will say bad things about you. Maybe you lose $10,000, maybe you lose $5,000, but that's not the end of life. A lot of people have actually lost that money and they have moved forward. So you have the ability, because you're brilliant, to actually understand that it's simply a learning curve. Yeah, that's the thing. The failures that might happen to you are simply a learning curve. If you are brilliant, then you're more likely to actually learn from the failures that you go through compared to someone who is dumber, because for them it will just happen and they'll just move on, they won't care about it and just try out another idea. But you will be able to take learning points from your failures to utilize them in your next opportunity that comes your way. But also use your brilliance to intentionally view life from a more generalistic perspective than a more specialistic perspective. View life from the bigger picture. See all the opportunities around you. You have to be intentional. You have to try. You have to open up your mind and try to see life generally as opportunities and not just a more specialized way of seeing things and thinking that life can only end up one way. If you do that, then come on, you're going to make a lot of money. You're going to actually make way more money than even the dumber guys, people who are dumber than you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell, and also you can check out this video over here about money rules that the rich people don't want you to know. It will change your life. Lots of love. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.